McKenna rushed to the bathroom and began to hurl out all the food she had just eaten at dinner. She wasn't sick, and neither was she pregnant. She was a 17-year-old who was supposedly healthy. No one thought otherwise. It all started with her increasing weight. She was 9 years old when her love for food began to grow. She would stuff herself with cookies, chicken, and other junk food with great support from her mother. Her mother also loved to eat. She didn't care about calories and other whatnots. She just ate. She often told McKenna that she started craving food when she was pregnant with her. The craving didn't die after McKenna's birth, much to her father's annoyance. So McKenna grew up with a highly overweight mother who loved to eat a lot. No wonder it rubbed off on her. When McKenna was 10, she was noticeably more significant than her mates, and people mistook her for a 13-year-old. It had felt like a good thing then, but McKenna kept gaining weight until all her mates began to call her Lady Hawk. She didn't see it as anything because it meant she was strong, like the Marvel character. Then, the divorce came into her life and turned everything upside down. Her father woke up one morning and decided that he would not be able to live with two oversized women. McKenna was 14 by then and full of fat and flab, while her mates were skinny as a stick, sunbathing every summer. McKenna dared not expose her skin for fear of judgmental glares from people. She wasn't looking that bad. In fact, unlike her mom, her weight gain was on her thighs and hips, and she was still quite attractive. Her mother was unlucky. All the fat fell to her middle, and it felt like her legs carried so much weight. McKenna's father could not take it anymore. He pointed his finger at her. "You and your daughter are very disgusting, and I can't take it anymore. I begged you to reduce your food, but you only started keeping secret stashes of junk all over the house. I've always known about it. I can't stand it. I'll leave you two to enjoy your eating spree. Goodbye." Those were the words he said as he took his things and left. McKenna felt heartbroken, but she and her mother fell to food for comfort. Food became her father and her mother's husband. They drowned their sorrows in tubs of ice cream and bars of chocolate. It was heaven in the midst of hell. Her mother got custody of McKenna while her father would visit her every weekend. McKenna began to dread those visits. Each time he saw them, her father would start his greeting with, "Have you lost any weight?" And McKenna's response was often, "No." Her father would get irate and rush through his visit. McKenna always felt disheartened, and she was often unhappy. "Kenna, what's wrong?" her friend asked her when she had zoned out during one of their talks. McKenna broke down that afternoon at the lunch table. She told Mira about her eating issues and her father's apathy toward her. After patiently listening, Mira proffered a solution that would change McKenna's life forever. McKenna was excited to try the solution, especially when she found out she didn't need to give up food. So McKenna began to throw up after every meal, bringing her to where she was. She knelt on the toilet, put her finger down her throat, and began to hurl the chicken and fries she and her mom had for dinner. Feeling satisfied at the calories she had lost, she rose from the floor and headed out of the bathroom. She had been doing it for 2 years and felt good about herself each time she threw up. It was better than the burden of shame that fell on her each time she stuffed herself with food. The last time she saw her father, he smiled at her genuinely for the first time in years and said she looked much better. He was dating a lady with a supermodel figure, and McKenna often wished that her mother would at least try to lose weight, rather than looking at McKenna with suspicion. She had always hoped that her mother would lose some pounds by some miracle, and that her parents would be able to get back together. But it never happened. The weight gain didn't stop. She kept blowing up like a balloon, and McKenna was done with that lifestyle. As McKenna left the bathroom, she ran into her mother. "You haven't stopped this irrational behavior," her mother said in annoyance, while McKenna fixed her eyes on the polished floor. "You need all the nutrients you can get. It would be best if you didn't try to lose weight that way. I know you're doing this for your father, but don't forget that he's the one who left us." Anger flashed through McKenna's eyes. "He left because of you, Mom. He left because you couldn't control his eating. It's all your fault, so don't you dare blame him for leaving. You even made me become just like you, and I hate it. I hate it, and I hate you," she screamed. "I know you don't mean what you're saying, McKenna," her mother said with quivering lips, on the verge of tears. "You don't mean them." "I mean them, Mom. You have no idea how much I do. You made me into this," McKenna shouted. She turned away from her mother and ran out of the house. She kept running to the park. It let her avoid thinking about the altercation between her and her mother, and also helped her burn some calories. It was getting dark outside, but people were still on the street, returning from work, taking a walk, or going for a run. A few minutes into the run, McKenna began to pant. She bent over and placed her hands on her knees. Her breathing was ragged. "Hey, fatso, get out of the way! You're taking up all the sidewalk space!" A guy jogged past her in annoyance. McKenna staggered to the nearest bench and sat down with her head in her hands. She was feeling the massive effects of hurling after every meal. There was no significant change. She had only lost a few pounds, and everyone thought she was fat. Maybe she would have to give up on food. She needed to watch what she ate until she became like her father's girlfriend. She had once read how she could avoid food and still be healthy in a teen girl magazine. McKenna desperately hoped it would work. She would visit her father the next day, hoping he would notice significant changes. She returned home and retreated to her room without a good night to her mother. McKenna's mom called her for breakfast the next day, but she refused. She wasn't going to succumb to the temptation of eating the calorie-dense foods her mother had prepared for breakfast. Instead, she freshened up and headed out to her father's condo. She rang the doorbell, and Lacey, her father's girlfriend, opened the door. She was wearing a tight leather dress that would make McKenna look like a sack of rice if she dared to wear something relatively close. "Hey, McKenna," she said with a toothy grin. "It's great to see you." She didn't hug McKenna or show affection, and McKenna knew that she was only an irritating inconvenience to Lacey. "Johnny, McKenna's here. I'm heading out to have some fun with my friends," she yelled, grabbed her purse, and left the apartment before McKenna even set eyes on her dad, who was seated on the couch. "Hey, Dad," McKenna said slowly, shy steps toward her father. He looked up from the television and smiled at her. "Good to see you. I can see you're slowly dropping the weight. You need to focus on doing it faster." He motioned towards a couch, and McKenna sat down. Her emotional stability was already destroyed when Lacey opened the door and showed off her perfect model body to her father's comment about her weight. Why couldn't she have a peaceful visit without her weight getting in the way? "I'll work on it, Dad," she said as she mustered up a smile. "So, how is school? You're rounding up your junior year, right?" "Yeah, Dad." "Do you have a boyfriend yet?" "No," she mumbled. "Of course not. No guy will want you while you're looking the way you are. That's why I need you to drop all that weight." McKenna's heart kept sinking, and she had to hold herself together or she would burst into tears. She didn't want to put on a show. Besides, she only saw her dad once a month or two these days, and she wasn't going to waste this precious moment. "I'm doing well academically, Dad. I've got a strong GP, and I might even get into an Ivy League," she said, hoping to gain her father's approval. "It doesn't matter if you get into an Ivy League. With all that weight, you'll only be tossed to the back. Your mother attended an Ivy League, and look at what she's become. A flabby mess which had to be advised to work from home. Talented, but unseen. Just work on losing weight. I'm sure your mother still drowns herself in chocolate and ice cream. She's hopeless." The rest of the visit was a jumble of strained small talk, and McKenna left within 2 hours. She got home and bawled her heart out. Her body was still a mess, and she needed to work harder. That was when she decided to do away with food. For the next 2 weeks, McKenna lived on 2 pieces of fruit every day. Her mother was worried about her. She had also spent a lot of energy working out, anything to get rid of the weight between her and her father. It was like hell for McKenna. She craved food badly, but she was determined not to eat it. She was always tired, so she surfed the internet and found that she could get supplements to replenish any nutrient she might have lost. So for 2 weeks, Kenna lived on fruits and supplements until she had her first relapse. She woke up one morning to the smell of mashed potatoes and chicken. Before she could stop herself, she ran downstairs and met her mother in the kitchen. For a second, shame washed over her because she hadn't spoken to her mother since their falling out. Her mother served 2 plates, without saying a word. Both vessels were in small portions, and McKenna noticed the vegetables on the table as the side dishes. It seemed like her mother was trying to make some effort. McKenna slowly ate to avoid a stomach upset since she hadn't eaten in days. She ate it all up and took an additional serving. After breakfast, she hated her mother and herself for making her give in to food. Things went downhill from there. She fell back to her old ways of eating and even hid bags of cookies, chips, and chocolates in her closet. After each binge episode, she would hurl it out, work out, and spend 2 weeks without food. She began to lose weight rapidly until she finished her junior year. It seemed like her eating habit had paid off after all. That summer, Mira invited her to a summer camp where she was supposed to meet many hot guys, and McKenna was psyched about it. She had to shop for new clothes since all her clothes were now 4 sizes large. Her friend advised her to end her dieting since it had done its job. She had lost enough weight, but each time McKenna looked in the mirror, she only saw all the fat that needed to be burned. Her classmates had begun to comment on her rapid weight loss, and the people who had stopped talking to her when she became a social outcast suddenly started to say hi. Her last visit to her father was quite pleasant. Her father was in love with the new McKenna, and she had been happier than she had ever been in a long time. Lacey had even said she looked beautiful. So McKenna purchased new summer dresses that would go with her new figure. Her dad had gotten her a car as a congratulatory gift for her weight loss. So McKenna drove to the summer camp, which was only a few miles away. Her mother had been excited to see her finally participating in real-life activities rather than focusing on weight loss. McKenna found the camp in the woods and was happy to be around nature. She would use this period to reflect on her next step. She parked her car in the parking lot and took out her luggage. The camp was as refreshing as she thought it would be, with its rustic feel and wooden cabins. She went through the registration process and was placed in a room with other girls. This was going to be fun. She met up with Mira during their orientation, and they were addressed about the activities that would be taking place at the camp. McKenna soon settled in and joined in on all the activities. She made new friends, but was extra careful to avoid girls that loved eating. She would team up with the skinny girls to throw jibes at the fat girls at the camp, even though she wasn't so thin. She managed to avoid eating during mealtimes. And someone once asked her if she was anorexic. McKenna had already made up an excuse that she wasn't comfortable with the camp food. Her reason worked until someone offered her a packet of chocolate chip cookies, and she had to eat them to prove that she wasn't anorexic. She ate them, but excused herself after a few minutes. It was off to the woods to purge all she had eaten. When she was done, she turned back to find Mira shaking her head. "You need help, Kenna. I regret telling you about the throwing up thing. It was stupid of me, and I didn't think you'll try it. I wish you would stop. You've lost enough weight already. What's it to you? You have no idea how much satisfaction I get from getting rid of those excess calories. You don't have to worry about much because you have a perfect body." "All bodies aren't the same," Mira pleaded. "But it's in my power to change mine," McKenna countered. The buzzer sounded for the next activity, and McKenna left her friends standing. The next activity involved hiking down a trail. McKenna was psyched about it. She would have enough time to enjoy solitude without Mira's words eating at her. They all began to hike, singing songs and telling jokes. So much for the privacy she wanted. A few minutes into the hike, McKenna began to feel dizzy. The trail looked blurry and she felt unbalanced. Then she fell, and everything went black. She woke up in the infirmary with a worried Mira staring at her. "The doctor said you don't have any energy left. When was the last time you ate?" McKenna didn't need to answer the question because the doctor came in and asked Mira to leave. "I would like to ask you some questions, and I need you to answer truthfully," the doctor began. She looked worried, and McKenna knew that something was wrong. "When was the last time you ate?" "I had lunch today," McKenna mumbled. "And you purged it a few minutes later?" McKenna turned away in shame. Mira must have told her everything. Then, the doctor told her that she had bulimia nervosa, an eating disorder similar to anorexia. Since she had binge episodes, she couldn't be classified as anorexic. The doctor advised her to go home and attend counseling. "You're becoming anemic and have many deficiencies due to malnutrition. You fainted because you lacked the energy to perform the strenuous activities you forced your body to go through. Your eating habit has caused more harm than good. Your knuckles are bruised and your teeth are getting eroded. Your metabolism rate is getting low, and you may not be able to use up energy as quickly as you used to. Your mother has already been contacted, and she will be coming to take you home." Tears streamed down McKenna's face. She had only wanted to make her father happy. She didn't even think about the consequences. She knew she needed help and would try her best to get it. Her mother picked her up from camp. She had spent only 3 weeks out of 8. She was sad to leave, but it was all for her good. Her mother set up appointments for McKenna and herself to see a counselor and a nutrition therapist a few days after she got home. After 2 weeks of therapy, her mother broke the news that her father had married Lacey, and they had moved to Italy. McKenna was heartbroken. Her father had abandoned her again after everything she had done to please him. She cried for days, and when it stopped, it was with determination that she would become a better person and she wouldn't live up to anyone's standards.